Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is the A to Z tag video. I was tagged by Antonisha Lachey from Mrs. Moody Reader, and this is an interesting tag, but it's also quite long, so let's just dive straight into it. Number one, so each of these prompts starts with the letter of the alphabet starting with A. So, author you've read the most books from. So I had already actually done this because I'd seen someone else do a video of what were the authors that they'd read the most from. So I'd gone to Goodreads to check, and so the author I've read the most from is James Patterson. I've read 94 of his books, but I don't tend to read a lot of James Patterson anymore. That was a while ago, although I do still read The Women's Murder Club if any of those books come out. But then next up, and this was a tie, I've read 66 books by Anne Perry. I quite like her. She writes the William Monk historical mystery series, and that's what this one is. She also writes the Charlotte and Thomas Pitt historical mystery series. And I also actually really enjoyed her World War I series. There was, I think, 5 books in that series, and I thought that one was really good too. And then she's tied with M.C. Beaton, who I've also read 66 books by. So this is one of her Agatha Raisin books. She's also written the Hamish Macbeth series. She is also known as Marion Chesney. I actually think that maybe Marion Chesney's her real name and M.C. Beaton is like her pen name. She's got a series of 4 books that she wrote as Marion Chesney, and these are Edwardian historical mystery series. This one was really good too. And then she also has a whole bunch of Regency romances that she wrote as Marion Chesney, and those ones are cute too. All right, best sequel ever. Usually this is gonna probably usually be whatever is the one that I most recently read. It was hard to remember, but I actually had just finished reading the second book in a series that I am really enjoying, so I'm going for that one, and that's The Plea by Steve Kavanaugh. This is the second in his Eddie Flynn series. Eddie Flynn is a con artist turned lawyer, and in this book, this was a great sequel because we got to know the character a little bit better, and the story was, again, just really good. It draws you right in, and again, just really well written, very well paced. Yeah, just a fantastic story. Okay, currently reading. I am currently reading The Daughter of Sherlock Holmes by Leonard Goldberg. So this is a historical mystery set in 1914. Drink of choice while reading. Now this completely depends on what time of day it is. If it's the morning, I'll probably be drinking coffee. If it's the afternoon, I will probably be drinking tea. And the same goes for the evening, although in the evening I tend to drink herbal teas. So I do tend to drink hot drinks when I'm reading, but again, it totally depends. If it's the summer and I'm reading outside or whatever, then it could be a cold drink too. So kind of, I guess I don't really have a drink of choice. E-reader or physical book? Physical book, 100%. Fictional character you probably would have dated in high school. I never really kind of got crushes on characters even when I was in high school, so I'm just going to skip that one. Glad you gave this book a chance. I'm going to go with The Girl Who Came Home by Hazel Gaynor. This is a story about the Titanic, and at first, when I got it from the library, it looked intriguing, but then for some reason I got it in my head that it was YA. And so I actually didn't pick it up for a long time, and then I did some research and I realized it wasn't, and so then I read it, and so I'm really glad that I gave it a shot. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed that story. I found it really interesting. The characters were really interesting, and I'm fascinated by the events surrounding the Titanic. And so yeah, that one was a book that I'm definitely glad I gave a chance. Hidden gem book. Now I have a few for these. I was kind of looking at books that I really enjoyed that don't have a ton of reviews on Goodreads, and I'm not sure why. So I'm using kind of that as my idea of a hidden gem. So one is The Mask of the Black Tulip by Lauren Willig. That's in her Pink Carnation series, and that one has like hardly any reviews, and I don't know why. That is a really fun historical mystery series about a group of women spies. I mean, it's so good. Kind of during the Napoleonic Wars. Really fun. Another hidden gem is A Conspiracy of Violence by Susanna Gregory. This is a historical mystery series set in England. The first one is 1662, so it's just after the restoration to the throne of Charles II. And so this is a series, I really enjoy them. I like the stories, I like the characters. Yeah, this is a series that really works for me, but doesn't get talked about a lot, and had hardly any reviews on Goodreads. Another one is After the Armistice Ball by Catriona McPherson. So these are all so far books that I ended up giving 5 stars to. I really, really enjoyed them. The After the Armistice Ball is the first in her Dandy Gilver series, which is a historical mystery series set in Scotland in the 20s. Again, it doesn't get talked about a lot, but they're really fun historical mysteries. Another series is the Maeve Kerrigan series by Jane Casey. The first one is called The Reckoning. This is I guess you might call it a police procedural. Maeve Kerrigan is a detective sergeant in London, and this series is really good. Really good, really well written. The characters are amazing. I love Maeve. Maeve is a great, great character, and she works with this DI called Josh, who is difficult to work with, and so their relationship as co-workers is really very entertaining. But yeah, they're really well written with really, really good mysteries, but really great ongoing storylines as well. And so that's a series that I highly recommend, but totally feel like it's a hidden gem. And then last but not least is The Blue by Nancy Bilyeu. Again, this is a book that I gave 5 stars to that doesn't have very many ratings on Goodreads. This is a historical mystery series book set in London in the 18th century, and it focuses around the world of porcelain making, but specifically about the artists who painted the porcelain. And in this book, they're in a search for a specific color of blue, and I just found that whole concept fascinating. Okay, important moment in your reading life. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was when I learned to read and discovered how much I just absolutely loved reading. I don't know. I just finished The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. This is a book set in France, translated from the German by Simon Pear. I read this as a buddy read with Danny from Spinelli Speaks, which was really fun. I loved buddy reading this with her. And this is a story about a man who owns a book barge in Paris, but ultimately it's a book about grief. Okay, kinds of books you won't read. There's actually very little that I won't read, but I have no interest at all in books like nonfiction books that are like heavy science or books about math. I just have no interest in those. Same with erotica, not interested at all. Longest book you've read. Now, I'm not entirely sure about this because I'm fairly certain I've read a book that was over 1,000 pages, but I was just looking on Goodreads, and according to Goodreads, the longest book that I've read is Tombland by C.J. Sansom. That's the last in his Matthew Shardlake series, and that came in at 866 pages, the edition that I had. Major book hangover because of... I don't tend to get book hangovers, so I couldn't really come up with anything for this. Because even a book that I absolutely loved and really enjoyed, I'll talk about it, but I don't, like, it doesn't stop me from immediately picking up the next book that I want to read. Okay, number of bookcases you own. So I've come in at 9, I think. So we've got 3 here in the living room, 2 in the office, 1 in the book nook, 1 in the spare room, and I'm going to say 2 in our bedroom because we've got like a standing bookshelf ladder thingy, but also our headboard is a bookshelf, so I'm counting that as 1. So I'm going to say 9. One book you have read multiple times. And I couldn't decide which book to go with, but in the end I think I'm going to say The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. I've read this book I think at least 4 times, and I still absolutely love it. Okay, preferred place to read. I will read pretty much anywhere, but I have a nice comfy chair here in the living room that I tend to do most of my reading in. A quote that inspires you or gives you all the feels from a book. Okay, so I'm going to do both of these actually because it's a good excuse for me to show you. This is my quote book. This is a notebook that that Erin and I will keep quotes from books that we've read, quotations that we just really liked from books. And so the one that I chose from here is from The Tiger in the Smoke by Marjorie Allingham. The fog was like a saffron blanket soaked in ice water. It had hung over London all day and at last was beginning to descend. The sky was yellow as a duster and the rest was a granular black, overprinted in grey and lightened by occasional slivers of bright fish color as a policeman turned in his wet cape. I just really like that. I think that's cool. Okay, and then the other quote book we have is this one, and in this book we keep quotes about books. So this one is for quotes from books, and this one is for quotes about books or reading. And so the quote that I chose is from Louisa May Alcott. She is too fond of books and it has turned her brain. I chose that one because that is the inspiration for my channel name, so I thought that was a fun way to go. Okay, reading regret. I don't have reading regrets because if I don't like a book, I don't read it. I'm very free with putting down a book, and if I don't like it, I don't force myself to finish a book that I don't enjoy. Other than if it's for like a book club or something, and even then I don't regret reading it because I enjoy the discussion then with the book club afterwards, even if it was a book that I didn't enjoy myself. Series you started and need to finish. I'm going to go with the Inspector Singh series here by Shamini Flint. I have 4 books left in that series and I quite enjoy it. Inspector Singh is on the police force, an inspector in Singapore, and so I enjoy the area of the world where these books take place. These are modern day books. I enjoy the writing and the character, and that's a great series. I need to finish that series. 3 of your all-time favorite books. So I have to go with The Murder of Roger Ackroyd as one by Agatha Christie. Another is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I absolutely adore this book. This was published in 1860, and it's very gothic-y and sensational and wonderful. And then finally, Persuasion by Jane Austen is one of my all-time favorite books as well. I just absolutely love this story. Okay, Unapologetic Fangirl For. I'm not entirely sure that I understand what they're asking for here, but I'm just going to say that I am unapologetically a major fan of historical mystery. That is my go-to genre. I absolutely adore historical mystery. Very excited for this release more than all the others. Now this book is already out, but it's a new book that I am so excited for, and I've just gotten it from the library. And so I'm going to go with Agatha Christie's Poirot, The Greatest Detective in the World by Mark Aldridge. This is the full behind-the-scenes story of a century of Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot. So I'm very excited about this. He basically goes decade by decade, and he goes into each of the Poirot books that were written in that decade, but he also talks about the TV adaptations and the movie adaptations, etc. So I'm really excited to get into that. Worst bookish habit. I don't know what I don't know if I have a worst bookish habit. I don't turn down the pages. I try not to break the spine. Like I take care of books because I read so many that aren't mine, that are from the library. So I don't know that I have a worst habit. Although maybe Aaron would say that I read in bed, because there has very often been times when I've fallen asleep while reading a book, and so he gets cracked on the head with the book because I've fallen asleep. Okay, X marks the spot. Start at the top left of your shelf and pick the 27th book. Okay, so rather than just choosing one shelf to do this, I thought it would be fun to choose from multiple shelves, because this is a really fun way to give you an idea of the variety of books that we have in our collection. So I did this for each of the 3 bookshelves in here in the living room, the book nook, the one in the spare bedroom, and the tall one in our bedroom. So I've got 6 books to show you. These were the 27th book on each of those shelves, and I think that it's very fun for you to see the variety here of the types of books that we have. So first up is The Rats by James Herbert. The Population is Being Ripped to Shreds, a terrifying novel by James Herbert. My husband has read this. He loved it. He said it's kind of like one of the first sort of post-apocalyptic type of books. Let's see, this was published in 1974. And so the threat to the world in this book, of course, is rats, which that sounds disgusting to me. Okay, the next up is Mountain Man by Vardis Fisher. This is, again, my husband's read this book and he really enjoyed it. This is a novel about a mountain man, apparently. Let's see. This was published in 1965, and the inside cover says, a novel of male and female in the early American West. All right, next up is Comes the Blind Fury by Douglas Rutherford. This is one of the old school Penguin editions. This book was first published in 1950. Douglas Rutherford was born in 1942 at the age of 28, when an unsuspecting person with another name altogether was sent overseas on His Majesty's service as a counterintelligence officer. He found himself capturing spies, staying in the hands of murderers, and working with the secret police forces of France and Italy. It was this wartime excursion into the shady underworld of international crime and espionage which gave him the background and incentive to write his thriller novels. He has a good knowledge of continental countries, speaks 4 foreign languages, and still goes abroad regularly in search of fresh material for his stories. Comes the Blind Fury is his first novel. So this is my book. I have not read this yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. The story really began in 1940. shortly before Dunkirk, but it didn't concern Reagan until many years later when the partner of his newly opened special agency business was summarily shot in a Paris nightclub. Harry Forsyth had been trying to trace the brother of their first client, the pretty daughter of a well-known bank president. Blackmail had been mentioned and adventure was what they had expected, but the possibility of murder had not occurred to anyone. Reagan chased his friend's trail to where it stopped and then, doubly disguised, followed other clues on to further violence, a beautiful French cabaret artiste, and a final reckoning with a group of escaped convicts in a Swiss villa. So that just sounds awesome. Okay, next up we have The Lord of the Rings, Part 1, The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Both Aaron and I have read this and love it. And Death of an Expert Witness by P.D. James. I've read this and quite enjoy it. This is one of her Adam Dalgliesh series. This was published in 1977. And then finally is The Heaven Tree by Edith Pargeter, who also writes as Alice Peters, so she writes the Brother Cadfael series. According to Illustrated London News, it is more than remarkable. The writing is almost beyond praise. Isn't that great? So this is volume 1 in the Heaven Tree trilogy, and it is set in England in the age of King John. So it's a medieval story. These aren't mysteries though, these are just historical fiction. And then I would also like to read the back, the Illustrated London News again. It says, "If you do not appreciate this superb novel, I despair of you." So there you go. There's a little snippet of the variety of books that we have in our collection. Okay, your latest book purchase. Okay, this just arrived from Amazon. This is Poor Miss Finch by Wilkie Collins. This is an Oxford World's Classics edition. This is a novel that he wrote in 1872. When Madame Pratolungo answers an advertisement to be a lady's companion, she little knows the circumstances that will lead to a tale of love, deception, and heartache. The lady whose companion she becomes is Lucilla Finch, young, beautiful, and blind from infancy. Lucilla's happiness seems assured when she falls in love with Oscar Dubourg and he proposes marriage. But Oscar has an identical twin who sees a way to win Lucilla's love for himself. In Poor Miss Finch, Wilkie Collins introduced elements of myth and fairy tale into 19th century realist fiction to explore the idea of blindness and its implications. His sensitive depiction of Lucilla's emotions and experiences gives added poignancy to the excitement of his storytelling. So I'm excited to get into that. And then finally, Snatcher book, the last book that kept you up. So I guess that's Z Snatcher, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with The Plea by Steve Kavanaugh. I think I stayed up reading this till like 2 in the morning. Very, very entertaining. Okay, so there you have it, the A to Z book tag. That was really fun. I also know that that I'm late to the game with this tag, so I'm not going to tag anybody specifically, but if you're watching this and you haven't done it and it sounds really interesting, then consider yourself tagged. And I will see you for another video soon. Bye.